Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is the Black Truth Seeker channel, and my name is Jeff. I will be your host tonight. I want to give you an update on an event that had taken place last year on February 28th, and that's the Black National Boycott of Target. Okay? And I want to make a revision real quick too, because I was thinking back at that time that Al Sharpton was actually the leader and founder of this particular movement. I want to make a revision on that. I want to strike what I said because this is the Black Truth Seeker channel. So if we said anything that's not accurate, we want to get it right, so. But the founders were three young women. One of the ladies, she's a civil rights attorney. Her name is Nakima Levy Armstrong. And she had someone that was working with her by the name of Monique Colors. You probably heard of her. She's actually the leader of the Black Lives Matter in Minnesota and one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. Okay. So I just wanted to address that real quick. So today I want to give you an update on what's going on, and it's not good at all. And I still stick, to what I believe, and that is that we don't really need to be going out on no boycott because of what it stands for. Initially, this boycott was put together to have DEI reinstated in Target. This is what the big argument was over, So I'm going to read a couple of things to you. I'm going to read some of the demands, that these women put out. And they wanted to accomplish these demands. So let me read some of these demands, okay? Under the 2026 National Boycott of Target, these are the demands as followed. Honor the $2 billion pledge. Target shall fulfill its commitment to the Black businesses and communities through project purchases, service, and advertising. Number 2, deposit $250 million in Black banks. I believe that should have said billions, or it may say millions. Okay. Number 3, fully restore DEI commitments. Target should reinstate all programs promoting DEI. And number 4, the pipeline community. Okay, this has a lot to do with the HBCUs. They want pipeline community centers at all 10 HBCUs. This will help establish retail business programs at the HBCUs. Okay, so let me unpack some of this. First of all, these demands was put out back in 2025, roughly a year ago, okay? And if one of your demands was $2 billion, a $2 billion pledge, because Target did make a promise after the George Floyd incident back in 2021, Target was one of the companies that was making pledges, and one of their pledges was that they would definitely fulfill its commitment to the Black community, by honoring the $2 billion pledge. Okay, that has not happened. I said it in my video 1 year ago. I said it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. I said Target is one of the major, biggest retailers in the whole country. They can take a couple of hits like that, because you said a 40-day fast. So Target had already then looked at you as you already defeated, because they already planned that stuff out probably the very first month that these demands was put in action. They said that, 40 days, they just going to go on a 40-day fast. Well, we'll just hold back on that $2 billion. And today is 2026. They haven't received the $2 billion yet. Number two, depositing $250 million in black-owned banks. Okay. First of all, let me make this plain and clear. There is not even a such thing as a black-owned bank in the United States. You know, anytime that they put the word black in front of something, we just take that stuff and we chew it up, we digest it, and we run with it, and we just look at that stuff as real, you know, just because it has the word black in front of it. So when we hear the word black bank, we think that that bank has ownership. We think that black people actually have ownership of that establishment. But you have to look deeper into that, you know. So if you actually do your research on black-owned banks, you will find out that blacks have up to 51% of the voting stock in these black-owned banks. First of all, let me tell you how many black-owned banks we have. It is said that we have between 18 and 24 black-owned banks, which to me is a very abysmal number, very small, diminutive. I mean, that don't hold no weight at all. Because when you think about all the white-owned banks that we have, or all the banks that the Jews own, or the non-blacks as a collective, they own over 44,000 banks in the United States. So just keep that in mind. What Dr. Claude Anderson told us years ago, he said that we only comprise 0.5% of the nation's wealth. And it all makes sense. If you look at the numbers, you got to follow the numbers. You know, if you follow the numbers, you get the truth out the numbers. So that's what I mean by black-owned banks. In order to be black-owned, you have to have 100% of ownership. That's when you can call it black-owned. If anybody else have any type of shares in that establishment, then that takes away that ownership. You no longer has that ownership. You have to share that ownership with somebody else. It's a partial ownership. Okay? So let's be clear with that. It's not a such thing as a black-owned bank here in the United States. I did a lot of research on searching for black-owned banks, and there's not one black-owned bank in the United States. So I just want to be clear on that. Now, let's talk about the DEI situation, okay? We want DEI reinstated. Why, I'll never know, because if you do your research on DEI, and you have to do a historical research on the first affirmative action programs that was issued out in this country. You have to go all the way back to the 1800s, during the time when slavery was so-called abolished in 1865. The very first affirmative action program was issued to the white slave owners. I'm going to say that again. The very first affirmative action program was issued to the white slave owners. They were the first ones to receive reparations because the slaves were their property. See, black people was looked at as property. And that's still the case today. You know, some of us just don't want to admit it, but they look at us as property today. That's why they don't have no respect for us. But because they lost their property during the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, they were able to get reparations under the new president by the name of Andrew Johnson. So just keep that in mind. That was the first affirmative action program. And you have to ask yourself for, okay, under affirmative action, who did it help? It helped white people. It helped white males. Okay? That's who it helped. Because black folks, we were the builders of everything. We invented everything. We were very skillful and crafty. We knew how to build. Our ancestors gave us the knowledge on how to build a civilization. And we took that knowledge in the United States and we implement all that our ancestors taught us. Okay? This is why the slaves were so, they were very good at their craft of building. They didn't just pick cotton. They didn't just pick tobacco. They didn't just pluck rice. They did more than that. They build. They cooked. They cleaned, they nurtured, they did everything to the point where white people were very skillless. They didn't have any skills. So they were upset. They were worried, like, what is we gonna do, without these slaves? Now that we don't have these slaves, we got to put something in the practice that's gonna bring us revenue because, we don't have any skills. So the first thing that Andrew Johnson did when he became president, he gave all the slave owners their reparation package. And it, like I said, it helped white people. If you go up in time, when affirmative action under the civil rights movement, that particular policy helped white women in particular. They were the biggest benefactors. Then you had the immigrants, then you had the Asians and, people of other nationalities, it helped everybody but us. We were like last on the list, at the bottom of the list, but every other benefactor that was over us, they got all the goodies. And by the time they got to us, it was like maybe, okay, out of 100, we'll let 1 or 2 of y'all get in, but the other 98, they up shit creek, and that's just how it was. That's how it is right now today with DEI. DEI, the biggest benefactors is white women, and then the next in line is white men. And then the process goes all the way down to us being the last on the echelon. We the last, to receive benefits. And like I said, they're not going to give a whole mass of us benefits. They're just going to give, like I said, a select few. And then that way they can say that they are upholding policy. So I wanted to, put some clarity on that also, And the pipeline community that will help HBCUs, if you know anything about HBCUs right now, and that's every last one of them. I don't care which one you pick. Every last one of them is multicultural. It's multicultural. It's a multicultural college. It's not a black college. They talk about HBCUs like that's a black college. It's not black. It's not black. It's multicultural. So that means that everybody is going to receive benefits, and we're going to be at the bottom. And this is how it works. This is how it always worked. So the chaos that I wanted to talk about briefly of this particular black boycott of Target is that the 3 women that started it off, they was getting ground and gaining ground because Target had lost close to 12 to 15 billion in revenue because a lot of blacks did stop shopping from Targets. But here's the thing. There are a lot of businesses that was in Target that was hurt behind this boycott. So it was like their strategy was messed up. They should have came up with another strategy. A good strategy they could have came up with is okay, we're not going to target boycott. We're not going to target boycott Target, but what we will do, we'll just support all the black businesses in Target. And they will still lose money in the process. They will still lose 12 to 15 billion because blacks are not buying any other products but from black products, from black owners. Okay? Now they could have took that route and they would have been okay. I would have been all for that. You know? But you had a preacher, and I'm hard on pastors. I'm hard on preachers, you know, because I did a video on how we was brainwashed by this religion called Christianity. And these pastors, you know, they, like I said, if they know the truth, they're not going to put it out there because they'll lose members. They'll have to shut their churches down. So they don't want to put anything out there other what's in the Bible, okay? But this particular gentleman by the name of Jamal Bryant, I'm going to put a name out there because you need to understand that we are always our worst enemy. And this time our enemy comes under the clothing of Christianity, okay? A bishop. And I'm not saying this, but this is coming out of the leaders, the mouth of the original movement. The young ladies that started this particular boycott movement, they said that this man co-opted they movement. And they proved it, you know, because when I watched a couple of videos on these ladies speaking about this particular pastor, and they were spot on. They were spot on. I'm not taking sides because I'm on the side of not boycotting at all. Because when you boycott for DEI and you say that that's your primary purpose, what you really doing, you really boycotting for the sake of white folks. You only boycotting to make them stronger or to uplift them. It's not doing anything for us. So that's my take on boycott, period. But where the chaos is that they're actually arguing over who started it, who started the movement, you know, and who shouldn't be a part of the movement. It's almost like a voter looking at two parties, the Republicans and the Democrat, you know, and you got black people on both ends at each other's throat, not realizing that both parties are working for the same interests. It's just that one, a skin and grin in your face and put a knife in your back, and the other one, they'll frown at you and put a knife in your chest. That's just a so to speak phrase, YouTube. I'm not talking any violence. So it don't make no difference who's right and who's wrong. They both is down for a protest. But what happened, this particular pastor, wow, he called an end to the protest. And she actually pointed out that he actually went to Washington and called a press conference and ended the national boycott. So that's where we at right now today with the boycott, you know. She's trying to keep it going and he's trying to put an end to it, you know. But like I said, it don't make no difference, you know, who's right and who's wrong. The bottom line is, what is it doing for the collective black man and the collective black woman? What is it doing for us? What is it doing for the collective black family? It's not doing anything, okay? So that's pretty much all I wanted to say this evening. I will be continuing on the installments of breaking the mental shackles of slavery. I'm going to start probably tomorrow or maybe Thursday. And I will see you then. But I just had to put this message out here real quick because it was heavily on my mind. Okay, my black brothers and sisters, I love you and peace out.